Tommy Jaggi of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher. As training camps ensue, the pads come on. We're going to talk about which players, which of these notable NFL starters, Marcus, are in their last chance to be a starter this year, or potentially in their last chance to be a starter. We're going to get to that in just a second. Before we do that, we have to talk about Bijan Robinson's massive contract extension as of Tuesday morning. Robinson is now the highest paid running back in NFL history, earning a $75 million extension over the next 3 years, $22.25 million up to $25 million per year. Marcus, I love Bijan. We talked about him on our last show, him and Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm sure Gibbs is coming up next year. But Bijan now, we're talking about a player who is breaking new ground here at the running back position. He has 805 carries in his first 3 seasons and over 1,000 total touches. Is this too much? At what point is the breaking point for a running back?
We probably passed it, right? But I think if you're making the argument for this deal working out, it's number one, the Falcons aren't paying a quarterback, right? They've got Michael Penix on a rookie contract and Tua on a veteran minimum deal. And I think if you're going to pay a running back, don't pay the mid-tier ones, right? Pay the elite guys that are in the primes of their career. And I think for a guy like Bijan, I mean, we can argue whether Bijan's the best or the second best running back in the league, but he's right there, right? And we still think there's a lot of tread still left on those tires. I would be hesitant about doing a deal because you're giving him this much money. I think it was like $15 million more guaranteed than even what Saquon Barkley got last year. But at least you're paying the elite of the elite running backs.
Paying for the youth and what lies ahead, whereas some of these other guys that are older getting money, you don't know what the future holds for them. And I will say, I mean, this, even in a situation, we go look back at Christian McCaffrey's trade from the Panthers to the 49ers, that very well could have worked out for them. I mean, they were at least a team in a window, and they stomached the double gut punch of not only am I giving you draft capital, I'm turning around and paying you as the top running back in the league. I think that there's no other option here. You have to pay Robinson. He is half your offense right now, so totally understand where that is coming from. Any other thoughts on that? And then we're going to get into our players.
I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs has played this really well, right? Because now you go to the Lions and there's no way that you ask for anything less. And I think the Lions have to know, like, okay, this is the market now. And if you're Detroit, this is the one I'm more fascinated by, Tommy, because Detroit is in a very different situation, right? They've already paid a majority of the guys on their offense, including Jared Goff. They're paying 2 receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. They're paying Penei Sewell. Sam Laporta is going to be eligible for a contract extension after this year. You can make a case, and you probably would be right, that Gibbs is the best player on that offense.
Yeah.
Do you pay him $26 million a year, though? Or is the reason like, hey, he's not a between the tackle runner. He's kind of a guy that we get in space and we give a bunch of catches to. His game is going to age really well, and you just don't even think about it. I guess my issue is it's really hard to pay 3 skill players at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what the Lions are going to do.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about last week how they wanted to be you want to be the last guy getting paid here because then you're going to leapfrog the other guy. Theoretically, we'll see if that plays out. All right, we're going to talk about quarterbacks and skill players entering their last chance as starters. But before we do that, this is Stacking the Box, where NFL fans come to talk, celebrate, and debate. For more coverage, hit up fansided.com, powered by the passionate fans at Fansided. All right, Marcus, let's talk about some of these notable NFL offensive starters around the league who could be in their very last chance. In fact, some almost undoubtedly in their last chance in the NFL. And let's start right with Deshaun Watson, a player who hasn't done anything in the NFL in 5 years, nothing noteworthy at least. I mean, I'm shocked that he's even getting a chance at this point. He's soaked $230 million total out of this franchise, guaranteed contract, one of the worst contracts in NFL history. And they've got nothing from it so far. Having said that, even if we look back 5 years ago, like he's still the most talented and best option on this team. Is this his last chance to start in the NFL? And obviously, if he gets beat out by Shedeur, like he's never starting a game again.
Yeah, and I wonder with Watson, like He's had all these injuries, including 2 Achilles tears. His body has just been beaten up. He's been out of football for, was it 18 months at one
Yeah, it's a long
stretch?
stretch.
I just don't know if he has it physically anymore. Even coming out of Clemson, like he was not the most toolsy quarterback. He was just very accurate. And now that I think the athleticism is gone, I mean, this was a guy that was very athletic coming out of college. The athleticism's gone. The arm strength looks like it's gone. I wonder, like, what happens after this year, because I think we could see Watson and Shedeur Sanders both starting this year, but I just don't see any way he's on the roster at this time next year. And does a team even bring him in to be a backup? Because I wonder if there's such a stink around him that there's just franchises that they don't want to put up with it, and they might not even consider him a backup. So I wonder if this is not only his last year starting, but his last year in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're going to have him around as a backup, which team is going to be willing to take that on with the baggage that comes with that, knowing that there's been off the field issues in the past, the distraction. I don't see it. I think 100% this is Deshaun Watson's last year, barring something spectacular. And Todd Monken just gets the 100% out of him. He looks like he did as the Houston Texans quarterback. This is probably it for Deshaun Watson. Let's talk about another quarterback here in Kyler Murray, who has just one winning season in his first 7, albeit on a pretty untalented Arizona Cardinals team with the Minnesota Vikings now. And we always talk about, Marcus, how your past draft status does matter. I mean, this is a former number 1 overall pick. He's going to be given every opportunity. Despite his small stature, he's got a whip of an arm. He's athletic. He can scramble for first downs. Like, do you think that, and there's no competition right now, like JJ McCarthy is not that guy. And so the Vikings could very well draft another quarterback. They could stream another quarterback. This is a 1-year rental, essentially. Do you think he's going to be starting somewhere around the league next year, if you had to guess?
Yeah, if I had to guess, Tommy, I think he's going to get a big contract from either the Vikings or some other team next offseason. You're right. Like the quarterbacks that are drafted like inside the top 3 will get time and time. They'll get plenty of chances to show that they can be that guy. We saw Sam Darnold went from the Jets, the Panthers, to the 49ers, to the Vikings, and then the Seahawks, and ended up winning a Super Bowl, right? We've seen Baker Mayfield bounce around from the Browns to the Panthers to the Rams, now to the Buccaneers. And I think at this time next year, he could be the NFL's highest paid quarterback. I'm not saying that Kyler's going to have that kind of trajectory, but I could see a situation where he, wins 10 games in Minnesota. He has 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and he's making $55 million next year for a random NFL team, because I do think he has that kind of talent. I think that Arizona situation, and I think you're starting to see it play out now, is just really toxic. And I don't know if they've got grown-ups in charge over there. I think Kyler's going to have a huge bounce back season in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think he is too. And I put him on our quarterback list that we did a few weeks back. One other factor to consider in here, though, is Kyler has finished just 1 full season in his last 5 years. Injuries have been a concern. I mean, over the last 3 seasons, the guy has played 10 games a year. How much of that is going to factor into potential future contract talks? Not to say that he's not going to be a starter, because I agree with you on that sentiment, but just going off topic here, is that going to factor into contract talks with Kyler?
I don't think so, because I think everybody around the NFL knows what happened last year. Like, he did have an injury, but it wasn't an injury that needed to keep him out for the second half of the season. I just think Arizona knew they were moving on. They didn't want him to get hurt again and then guarantee him more money or anything like that. If he has an injury this year, Tom, and he doesn't play 17 games, I think we can have that conversation. But Kyler's just so talented that I think he's going to get so many shots at this.
Yeah, and oddly enough, he's going to maybe follow in the footsteps of another former Oklahoma quarterback in Baker Mayfield, who broke the bank shortly after leaving the Rams, and obviously had a good career so far with the Buccaneers. Maybe that'll be Kyler's trajectory as well. Let's stick with the quarterbacks here, and let's talk Michael Penix Jr. I don't know what to make of this guy. I don't know. I think there's been some really positive moments, but there's also been a lot of just so-so performance out of him. He's not young at the quarterback position, because he was already older when he came out, and only has 11 or 13, 14 games of experience, 12 starts, He's going to be 26 already this year. He's got coming off the knee injury, competing with Tua. And so he's not even guaranteed to have the starting job. But if you had to make a guess now, based off of how everything has gone with Penix so far, is he going to be an NFL starter beyond this season?
It'll probably be as a spot starter and as a high-end backup, right? Like the injury concern, like we just got done talking about with Kyler, like Penix is significant. Like he had to medically retire at one point in his college career. Now he's got the ACL injury. I just worry that no team is going to trust him to stay in the field. And that's why they can't make him, their every week starter. But I do wonder, like, if this Atlanta situation fails, and I think they're going to go to Tua, we'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if a team trades a late round pick for Michael Penix and brings him into their quarterback room and believes that they can get him healthy or get it figured out, because he does have talent. I think he can throw the ball down the field extremely well. I think he can be pretty accurate, but I don't feel confident that he can stay on the field, and that's the number one thing you need to do as a quarterback.
Yeah, I don't either. And with another major injury added to his profile here, it makes you wonder. He was already pretty statuesque back there. I mean, he's a testing-wise a solid athlete, but he's never a runner with the football. He's very much a pocket passing quarterback. Is he going to be more timid from the pocket? Is he going to be willing to take some of these hits? I think this could be it. And I think that it's pretty important that he ends up beating out Tua at some point this season, because if he doesn't, and they just the Falcons flat out decide, yeah, we're going to run with Tua and he's our quarterback, I think it's going to be really, really hard for him to ever get that chance again.
Do you think he will beat out Tua? I mean, I know both guys are banged up right now. Michael Penix, I think he said he might not get cleared for 11 on 11 for another couple weeks, but do you think he beats him out?
I think in a division that's so tight already, and knowing that the Falcons they're really right there. I mean, they're an 8-9 football team. They're really right there with the rest of their division, though. I think that they will want to roll with Tua, who just flat out has more experience, maybe a more accurate quarterback, and one that you can at least trust a little bit more. He's playing in a good weather setting, obviously, in Atlanta. And so and a lot of dome games. I think that Tua is going to be the guy, if I had to guess. Is that what you would go with?
I don't know. I don't feel great about the situation. Honestly, I don't feel great about either of them.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's talk about one more quarterback here before we move on to wide receivers, and that is Kirk Cousins, who is obviously going to be a stopgap starter for now. Fernando Mendoza is obviously the future of the Las Vegas Raiders, the number 1 overall pick. Kirk Cousins has had an awesome career to date, but could we finally be seeing the end of him in 2026? How many games, let me ask you this, how many games is he going to get as the starter this year? And then once they finally turn the page to Mendoza, is that it for Kirk Cousins? Does this mark the end of his starting career?
Frankly, I'm kind of shocked that he's even getting a chance to be a starter again. He played well, honestly, down the stretch last year for Atlanta. Yeah. They had a game against the Rams that they won, and he was phenomenal in that game. Now, the issue is the arm is gone. And I think a lot of it is because of the lower body injury. He had the Achilles tear late in his career. He's never had a huge arm, but there's just no juice left on the football. And you can play in the NFL a long time without having any kind of arm strength, but you got to be so accurate, and your anticipation has to be on the money all the time. I think he's going to get maybe a month before they turn to Mendoza. I think they just want to give the offensive line in Las Vegas a little time to gel before turning it over to Mendoza. But yeah, I think this is the end of the road for Kirk Cousins. And what an awesome career for being a 4th-round pick on a team that drafted 2 quarterbacks in the same year. I've always been a Kirk Cousins fan. I've always thought he's underrated. I think this is the end of the road, though.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about his career. What is he, the 2nd highest grossing quarterback?
It's great
in NFL history, behind like Aaron Rodgers. Like he's made a ton of money. Really good career as well. But I agree with you with the number that you put out there. 4 to 6 games was the number that I had in my head before they turned to Mendoza. I just don't know if they're going to want to hold up any longer than that to put the number 1 overall pick onto the field. And I agree with you. I mean, he's an old quarterback at this stage of his career. He turned 38, I think, this season. He had the Achilles 2 years back. I think that this is probably it for Cousins. And once they do this, I think that's going to be it for him. And let me ask you, do you think he's going to just retire after this, after the money he's made in his career? Or do you think he's going to be willing to just kind of sit for a few more seasons as a backup to some team?
I mean, he could hang around as a backup for as long as he would want to, because he knows everything there is to know at this point. He's played with so many different offensive coordinators, and I think his game is just really well suited to become a backup because he doesn't need a lot of practice reps, and he can come in, he can run your offense very, very well. But he's got a family. He's got a big family. He's earned all the money that he could ever spend in 5 lifetimes. Go enjoy your family, and I think that's the best plan here.
That's kind of direction I'm leaning as well. We're going to get to wide receivers, but before we do, the highs, the heartbreaks, every headline, this is Stacking the Box, your source of NFL talk, powered by Fansided.com and the voices at Fansided. All right, let's talk wide receivers here. Which of these players is entering their last chance to be an NFL starter? And I want to talk about Jerry Jeudy, a guy who was kind of disappointing early in his career, a high first-round pick. 2024 Pro Bowl season, 90 receptions, over 1,200 yards. And then last year, Marcus, we saw him hit the floor. Not all his fault. Obviously, it's a two-way street. You got to have quarterback play. But just 50 receptions on 106 targets for 602 yards. One of the least efficient receivers in all of football last year. And that was followed by the Browns going out and drafting Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston. Jeudy is not old. I mean, he's entering his age 27 season, but is this going to be his last chance to be an NFL starter before he's kind of just demoted to a role position?
I think so. And I think you're already seeing it out of Cleveland. According to several of their beat reporters there, Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion have been the best 2 receivers on the field throughout practice. And it's, according to, I believe it was Pete Smith, it hasn't been close. Those guys have been significantly better. It doesn't mean I think Judy's going to be out of the league or anything, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that's relied upon to be a number 1 or a number 2 receiver, because he's just has never developed since his time at Alabama. I think he's a guy that could run good routes, doesn't have the most reliable hands, more of a inside receiver than an outside receiver. And you look around the league, Tommy, like there are teams that could absolutely use Jerry Jeudy. I'm thinking of like Washington is one of them. Miami's another one.
Yeah.
But in terms of being like a good starter, I think those days are gone.
Yeah, you mentioned like the 2 worst receiving corps in the league. And I do think that Jeudy could be a starter for one of those teams beyond this season. Just based on what we saw last year, it was not a good sample. The Browns have other options. And so in Cleveland, he's going to be, I think he'll soon maybe turn into that wide receiver 3. And if he sticks around, and if not, we'll see if he gets another chance in the league. This one, I think, can go either way. I do think he'll be a starter, let's say this year and next year. But I think beyond that, he's going to be just demoted to a role position, if I had to guess. Let's talk Jahan Dotson here, another receiver who was once a 2nd-round pick out of Penn State.
First-round pick.
Was he first? That's right. He was a first-round pick. Yeah,
he was a top 20 pick.
That's right. And so the career path, not exactly how he would have expected it to go. It was with Washington his first 2 seasons, got traded to the Eagles. Didn't do much there. These last 2 years with the Eagles, 19 receptions in 2024, 18 receptions last year. Hasn't topped 300 yards since 2023. This guy just feels like he is on the way out now. Now, fortunately for Dotson, he's entering a pretty favorable situation, at least for now, in Atlanta. He's got Drake London there. Obviously, is going to be the target hog, and then Bijan, who we talked about early in the show. But the wide receiver room outside of that, a little bit shaky. I think he's got Darnell Mooney to compete with. And then he's also got the rookie there as well. Name's escaping me. 3rd-round pick. Zachariah Branch, who will be nipping at his heels. How long does Dotson hang on to this potential wide receiver 2 job, even in Atlanta, maybe wide receiver 3, before he is kind of weaned out and is no longer an NFL starter?
All right. So full transparency here. Tommy put together this list and asked me about some of these guys. And I, looked at the list and I saw Jahan Dotson's name on there. And I thought, he's a starter? So I mean, obviously not very long.
At the current depth chart, he is.
I mean, he is. I mean, you're not wrong. He is. He's likely going to open up week 1 as a starting receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think, Tommy, that's the point with some of these receivers, is that there is such a lack of talent around the NFL in terms with receiving talent. I mean, they're at the top. We've got a lot of good players, but the depth is just gone. And that's why you've got
Yeah.
guys like Jalen Tolbert and Jahan Dotson and Calvin Ridley, who's pretty washed up at this stage of his career, and Jerry Jeudy, who are likely going to get a lot of targets this season because we just don't have enough quality receivers. But for Dotson, like, he is pretty easily the worst wide receiver 2 in the NFL right now. And it is crazy to remember that he was the 16th overall pick in the 2022 draft. And Tommy, if you remember, that was a really, really good wide receiver class with Drake London, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, Jameson Williams, Wan'Dale Robinson, Romeo Doubs, Khalil Shakir, Christian Watson.
That really stings. Yeah.
And it's been rough.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see him sticking around very long in this role. Branch, a 3rd round pick. And it's not even that they have great options outside of him, unless Branch shows up and ends up being that guy. It's more of just, I think we kind of know who Jahan Dotson is at this stage of his career. I think he is a wide receiver 4 in the NFL. Like, that's probably what he's going to have for his role, the back half of his career. I see him losing his starting job at some point this season.
I'm with you. Yep, I'm with you.
Let's talk about another wide receiver here. Darius Slayton, a guy who, I mean, this guy does enough. I mean, he does enough. And I think that's probably a good way to describe it. He's always like in the 500 to 700 yard range. He still can act as a deep threat, though. I think that's ability is kind of diminishing a little bit as he gets older. He's been a starter for a long time in this league. And at some point it's like, all right, are you going to find another option here in New York? Because you have a pretty so-so receiver at this stage of his career. He's entering age 29 season. He has 78 starts under his belt in 106 games. I think he's a respectable player, but is this going to be Darius Slayton's last year as a starter? And what's going on with Malik Neighbors, by the way? Like, where is he at in his rehab right now?
Yeah, so the expectation is that Neighbors is going to be ready for week 1. Now, they might have to ease him in a little bit, but they do like the idea of Slayton being an outside receiver who can stretch the field. I just find Slayton's career fascinating because at one point in time, this was a guy that a lot of people really liked. The first 2 years of his career, he had about 1,500 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns, and that was with some pretty poor quarterback play. But he's dealt with some injuries over the last couple of years. He's going into year 8. He started 78 games in his career. I think he is one of these players that if he loses his starting job in New York, I do think you're going to have other teams and maybe floating around looking at him because makes plays down the field. He'll block a little bit. He'll go across the middle. And I look at someone like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And honestly, I think Slayton has been a better player than MVS ever has. MVS has been in the NFL for a lot of years now, just because there's not that many guys that have deep speed who can play on the outside. So this is one of the players that I think he is going to have more years of starting caliber seasons, at least coming up.
Yeah, I like the MVS comp there, and I think that Slayton is a better version of that, a little bit more natural football player. And if MVS can sign with the stinking Pittsburgh Steelers last year at 33 years old when he was completely washed up and take him off the street, and he started a few games, I think, for them, and I think that Slayton can do it as well. This is one that I'm going to say, yeah, he is a starter for maybe the next 2, potentially 3 seasons in the league. Then he'll be in his 30s. We'll see from there. I do think he's good enough to be a low-level starting wide receiver, call him a low wide receiver 2, a high-end wide receiver 3. We know who he is at this stage of his career, and I think he's still a respectable player. And that brings us to the last name on the list, and a guy who was once a really high-profile tight end, and that is TJ Hockenson. We even saw back when he was with Detroit in the year that he was traded, he had like 300 some yards in the first 5 games before he was traded. And then he had 500 yards the rest of the season, almost had 1,000 yards and like a 10 touchdown year. He was really good. And he's gotten bitten by the injury bug. 6 touchdowns it was. I was way off on that number. Bitten by the injury bug this past year, Marcus, in Minnesota as a 28-year-old, he started and played 15 games, but only had 51 receptions for 438 yards and 3 touchdowns, 8.6 yards of reception. His grade has gone down. I think he had the lowest grade since his rookie season in 2019. I think he had a 61 grade from PFF last year. Like, is this still the guy? And there's not really a respectable option outside of him. There's Josh Oliver there. Are they going to go out and get somebody else? Void contract after this season. He's going to be a free agent. What do you think happens with Hockenson?
I do think this is his last year in Minnesota. But I think he's just one of these players because he's a good enough blocker. He's physical. He'll make plays over the middle. He's just going to have a long career, and he's going to be able to stick around for a while. I just don't know if he's going to be in Minnesota as the featured guy for that much longer.
I would agree with you there. I think he's going to be a starter somewhere next year, but I don't know exactly where. It's not going to be in Minnesota, though. All right. This is the Stacking the Box show. It premieres every Tuesday evening. Be sure to check it out. You can follow Marcus on X at Marcus_Mosher. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also, check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written content on stillcurtain.com. Marcus's written content on the Fansided NFL Network. Be sure to check out fansided.com for all your daily sports news and opinions. And thanks again for listening to Stacking the Box.